Hello learners, welcome to this course on preparation of research proposal in social sciences. I am Dr. Pratik Chaurasia, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Education, Banaras Hindu University. Today we are going to discuss our module 6, which is based on variable, population and sample, and we will discuss lecture number 26 under this understanding and defining variables. We have discussed many components till now, that which are the components which are going to help you in formulating introduction, rationale, objective, hypothesis, research question. Now, today's lecture is very important in terms of having deeper understanding regarding variables of the study. What kind of a variable may have in research? So, we will discuss this all. So, let us begin. Key learning themes for today's lecture. What is variable? Very important thing, that let us understand what is the conceptual understanding of variable, importance of variable in research, flow chart of variables, major types of variables, independent and dependent variable in research, example of different types of variables, continuous and discrete variables, define variable clearly, and handling variables in research. This all aspects of variables are very important, because when you understand your variable properly in a research, then definitely you are going to execute it properly, you are going to handle it properly. And especially for those students, those who are doing their postgraduate dissertation, their doctoral dissertation, they are new to the field of research, and without understanding variables properly, it becomes difficult, especially to articulate and form research problem, hypothesis and research question. So, we will discuss all this one by one in detail. So, let us start. First is, what is variable? You can see here on the screen what is variable. A definition: variable is any characteristic, number or quantity that can be measured or quantified and can vary across individual groups and situations. Here, it is important to understand that how variable is different from other aspects, that it has a characteristic that it is measurable and quantified. It's okay, it is measurable and quantified. There are other things which are also measurable and quantified, but important aspect in variable is that it can vary across individual groups and situations. It can acquire different kinds of values. It can acquire different kinds of values, and that is why variable becomes important, because in a research it is the wheel over which all things are moving. So, what is variable is very important, and you can see here that it's any characteristics, number or quantity that can be measured or quantified and can vary across individual groups and situations. In research, now we are coming to the operational definitions. I have already discussed that you understand any aspect first in a dictionary means, and then in a research what does it signifies. So, you can see variables are the building blocks that form the basis for hypothesis and testing relationship. Just now I have mentioned that if you are not able to understand about the variables of the study, it becomes difficult to articulate the thing, because if you don't know the variable, then surely you are not going to understand the relationship between them and establish it properly. Importance of variable in research. Why it is important? Let us see. It helps in defining the focus of a study. What is the focus of your study? It helps you to define the focus of a study. What kind of a thing you are trying to do, what is your intent, what is your thought. Variables helps to define the focus of a study. Determine data collection method. Now, this is important. What kind of a variable you have? Definitely you are going to have that kind of a research design, because actually you have to counter that variables with the help of a research design. And the moment you define your research design, you have a tentative plan about your data collection, because it is specific. How you collect the data from certain design is specific. So ultimately you can see in a sequential order, variables keep a spatial thrust over data collection methods. What kind of variable you are taking? Similar kind of a or relevant kind of a data collection methods you have to adopt. Now allow measurement and analysis of relationship. This is important. Variables are allowing you to measurement and analysis the relationship, and it becomes very important and very interesting, especially in the field of social sciences, because I am repeating it again, we have to deal with the aspects those who are highly subjective in nature. So it becomes challenging for a researcher that how to attribute some aspects. For example, any psychological variable is there. Let us take example of stress. Then we cannot measure stress in kilogram, liter, that somebody is having 5 liter stress. No, somebody is having 10 kg stress. It's not like that, because we do not have a specific unit of it measurement. You can take example of personality also. When you are assessing personality, because you do not actually measure personality, you assess the personality. Then actually when you are assessing the personality, you do not have any concrete or specific scientific unit of personality. You go with the theory, you go with the researches. Therefore variable helps the researcher in order to make the things measurable. How you will analyze the relationship, you are understanding it properly. This is important to understand. You understand some certain aspect and attribute in your mind that this is the thing, it affects it. But how to measure it? It's a challenge. How to assess it? It's a challenge. You can take example of personality. When you say that this personality is good, what does this good means? This is the challenge in research. What does this good mean? You may understand what you are feeling about good, but what others will understand about this good, that is the aspect where you operationalize the thing and allows measurement to be happen. You allows the things to happen with the help of variable. Next is its guide hypothesis formulation. We have just discussed formulation of hypothesis in a previous lecture, and now we are discussing variables. So it is very important, and it's a mutual relationship that you have to understand, that variable guides hypothesis formulation. Without variable, no hypothesis you are going to form, because actually you are looking cause effect relationship, which one is affecting which one. So there should be some concretization of the aspect that you are going to research, and that concretization will be happen in the form of variables of the study. Let us take an example. You can see here on the screen. In a study on the effect of sleep on academic performance, sleep hours and test scores are variable. This is significant and important also, that when you form your research problem, tentatively also, when you are in a very initial phase of forming your research problem, it is very important, learners, to understand and identify that within your research problem, what are the variables it contains. Because all of a sudden you are not going to take some certain variable, you are actually having a problem. This is how we start our research proposal formation. We have some problem, it may be tentative, it may be subject to change, but we have a problem. Within that problem, you have to identify at a very initial level that this is the variable which I am going to counter later stages. You can see here with the example, in a study on the effect of sleep on academic performance. It's just a simple problem I have taken. Sleep hour and test scores are variable. Why? Let us discuss. See, sleep hour is related to test score in a such a way, I am forming a tentative hypothesis here, that the students or the learners, those who are having good sleeping hours, good means appropriate sleeping hours, will have good mental health, and definitely they will attain more in the test. Now some other researcher may form it in other ways also, but it is interesting and important that whosoever forms a hypothesis here have to consider these two variables, that is sleep hour and test score. How much an individual sleeps within a day and how test scores are affected. So this is how that we identify and define our variable in research. Next is flow chart of variable. It's a very important thing to see and understand. Variables generally are classified into two categories, quantitative and qualitative. Our research approach also, major research approach are of three types: quantitative, qualitative and mixed. Here we are categorizing variable into quantitative and qualitative. Let us discuss all this one by one. First is quantitative. We all know what is quantitative. Quantitative is something which is represented in the form of numeric values. Example, number of study hours. It's a simple quantitative variable. Now, further classification of quantitative variable is whether the variable is discrete or whether the variable is continuous. And here, to understand this bifurcation of quantitative variables in the form of discrete or continuous variable is very important, because in a research, when you are going to analyze the data with the help of some statistical tools, or you are using some statistical test, you have to see assumptions of that test, and that time discrete variable, continuous variable and its classification plays very important. For example, when you are going to use correlation, you have to understand the assumption of different types of correlation as per requirement of your study, and that time it becomes very crucial to identify your variable is whether discrete or continuous. So you can see here on the screen, discrete variable, finite and countable. Finite and countable cannot have fractions or decimal between them. Example, number of books. For example, if I ask to you that how many books you have in your house, you will definitely have a fixed finite number, that I have 10 books, I have 20 books, I have 15 books. You cannot say that I have 15.5 books. That is why it is important to understand that how discrete variable behaves. It is finite and countable and cannot have fractions and decimals. Always remember it. Next is continuous variable. Continuous variable, any value within a range including decimal and fractions. Now here things are changed. A variable which can acquire decimal and fractions as a value are known as continuous variable. Generally they are measurable. You can see example is there, weight. Weight can be 55.5 kg. It is not must that you will have exact 55 kg. Height, you can have 162.5 centimeters height. Therefore, a variable which can acquire fraction and decimal values are also known as continuous variable. So I hope discrete and continuous variable clear. Now let us move to the qualitative variable. Generally, when we deal with qualitative variables, the very basic idea of qualitative variables is they are non-numeric attributes. Non-numeric attributes. Example, learning style. It's a non-numeric attributes. And further, qualitative researches are being classified into two categories: categorical and ordinal. Categorical, without order. Example, types of school, they do not have any order, any specific order. And ordinal, categories with meaningful order like grade levels, grade A, grade B, grade C. So this is the difference between a quantitative and qualitative variable, which is further subdivided into discrete, continuous and categorical and ordinal variable. Now major types of variable. As a researcher, when you look deeper into the research variables, you will find different kinds of variable across the researches. But Among the most of the researches, some major types of variables are there that will come across most of the researches, and they are independent variable. The moment you start doing any research, especially when you are talking about variable, when you are identifying your variable, these four variables comes very primarily into the first hand experience, that what is independent variable, what is dependent variable, what is control variable, and what is extraneous variable. Let us see description. What is independent variable? Manipulated or categorized to observe effect. Very important. What is independent variable? Manipulated or categorized to observe effect. Any variable with the help of which we are observing the effect, or which is having some effect on some other variable, is called independent variable. We can see one example here. Teaching method. Any research when we are doing and we are looking the effectiveness of some certain teaching method over achievement, over interest, over motivation, then here teaching method plays a role of independent variable. Lecture method, modular teaching method. Two examples are there. Next is dependent variable. What is dependent variable? We can see here, outcome measured in response to changes in independent variable, that are called dependent variables. What are the outcomes of independent variables in the form of effect? That is dependent variable, and actually independent variable changes and provides some certain effect over dependent variable. Example is student exam score. Here you can relate independent and dependent variable in such a manner that with the use of different teaching method, student exam scores have been increased, ultimately achievement have been increased. So you can see teaching method is playing a role of intervention here. It's affecting something, and what has been affected or increased or decreased is dependent variable. So these are two major aspects of variable, dependent and independent, that you will find across the studies. Third is control variable. Description: keep constant to isolate the relationship between independent and dependent variable. It is very important. They are kept constant to isolate the relationship between independent and dependent variable. Same syllabus, same teacher. You can take example of here teaching method. Let us consider section A and section B of a same class, where we are looking into the effectiveness of teaching method. Let us take example of modular teaching method. In one section, a teacher is teaching with modular teaching method, and in another, teacher is teaching with traditional teaching method, and we see the effectiveness, whether achievement of the student after intervention has been increased or not. It's a pre-test post-test design, has been increased or not. But when we keep same teacher in both the sections, section A or section B, it's a kind of a control. We are controlling something to isolate the relationship between independent and dependent variable. And last is extraneous variable, which is of very prime importance for a researcher to be understand. It unintended variables that might affect the study outcomes. There are some certain kinds of variables in a research that researcher cannot control fully. You can only minimize the effect, but those variables will certainly affect your study. This variable will certainly affect the dependent variable, and that you have to control. For example, student prior knowledge. Whatever you are teaching, whatever you are giving intervention to the students in a class, they may have different kinds of prior knowledge, and on the basis of that their achievement may differ. And here, what the achievement they are having after being taught by modular teaching method, it's not the true aspect only of modular teaching method, because they have some certain prior knowledge also, and the student, those who are having more good prior knowledge, they may perform well, then there it's a kind of extraneous variable which affects your study, and you cannot actually control it also. Later on, there are some statistical tests with the help of which you can minimize the effect of extraneous variable like ANCOVA if you are using in a research. Independent and dependent variable in research. So, let us discuss this as it is very important. Variable example 1, let us take with the help of a research topic. Impact of online learning on student engagement. Simple topic I have taken, research topic. Impact of online learning on student engagement. Then independent variable, you can see here, mode of instruction, online learning, mode of instruction, online learning. Dependent variable, students engagement score. Clearly see the relationship between these two, that which one is affecting the other one. And you can see here, mode of instruction, that is online learning, is affecting student engagement scores. So, this is how we identify and define our variables, especially when independent dependent variables are there. Let us discuss with example number 2, research topic, effect of peer mentoring on dropout rates. Independent variable, peer mentoring program, and dependent variable, dropout rates. So, this is how you can classify your independent and dependent variable in a research, and I hope it's clear that how to make a difference between independent and dependent variable. Let us take some examples of different types of variables. Quantitative continuous type, example you can see, number of assignments submitted by college students. Quantitative categorical variable, types of schooling, public or private. Qualitative variable, student attitude towards online class. Independent variable, introduction of smart boards in classroom. And dependent variable, improvement in science test score. Here one thing is important that I am mentioning here, that before you identify your independent, dependent and other variables, it is must to understand the context of your research, because it depends on you and your research idea, that how you are going to articulate some certain kind of a research problem, how you are going to counter that certain kind of a research problem. So, the way you counter it, these things are related to that aspect. These things are related to this aspect, and then you can define, identify and your variables according to nature of your study. Continuous and discrete variable, since it's very important when you are dealing with a quantitative research. So, let us have a differentiation between continuous variable and discrete variable. So, what is continuous variable? We will discuss and see here. Can take any value within a range. It's an interesting and important thing. It can take any value within a range are measurable. Example, the student height, I have already discussed that it can acquire fraction or decimal values. Example, 152.3 centimeter. Time spent during a study, 2.75 hours, maybe 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Whatever you are taking as a decimal or fractional value, that goes under this categorical variables. And discrete variable, it takes specific separate values, often counted not measured. Always remember, it's counted not measured. Cannot take in between values. There is no scope of having any fraction or decimal values. If the variable is having fractional or variable values, then the variable is going to be in the category of continuous variable. Example, number of students in a classroom. You can never have number of students 20.25.5. You can never have 5.5 students in a classroom. So, think over this. You will definitely have a finite number, 25, 10, 1, 3, 6, whatever you have. Number of courses taken in a semester, again similar situation, 4 courses. So, this is how we differentiate between continuous variable and discrete variable. Now, define variable clearly. How to define your variable clearly? You can take care of this following aspects. Use operational definitions. A specific unit of measurement. Clarify context, who, where and how. Ensure consistency across data collection. Let us see with example, operational definition of academic success. This aspect of defining a variable is very important and very crucial, because defining a variable is not only a thing that you do separately, because it is contextual to research, demand of the research, and what you are actually trying to do, as well as how you have defined that certain variable by the help of operational definition in your research. This is important, that how you have defined it, it is important, and the way you define it, it will be easier to make a clarity about your variable. Next is a specific unit of measurement. As I have said you that when you are going to do research in social sciences, many times you encounter that kind of variable which are not easily measurable. You need to make a proper idea that how you will measure it, how you will have some certain kinds of a unit of its measurement, and that depends and varies from research to research. Third is clarify context, who, where and how. This is important. Without understanding context, you are never going to be in a state of having clarity about your variable. Never. First thing is that you have to understand the context. You have to clarify the context, that what actually your variable is there in your research, and for that use operational definition, where you are going to execute it and how you are going to execute it. And last is ensure consistency across data collection. So, these all things are very important, that how you define your variable clearly. And you can see here example, operational definition for academic success. Academic success is defined as obtaining a CGPA of 3.5 or above on a 4.0 scale over 2 consecutive semesters. Now, here this is interesting to be understood, that when I am talking about academic success have one standard definition, that what does it mean, but academic success varies from research to research related to context and demand of the research. Whatever norms you have set, whatever you have criteria you have set, that I am going to consider this score as academic success in this year or this semester, that is purely contextual, purely varied from research to research. Therefore, you can see here I have designed academic success is defined as obtaining a GPA of 3.5 or above on 4.0 scale. That is the demand of a study, that those students, those who will score 3.5 GPA on 4.0 scale will be considered academic success for 2 consecutive semesters. If they score this for one semester, they will not be considered as academic success. So, it is very important that how you define and understand the context of your research as well as variable. Handling variable in research is very important, how you will handle it. So, let us see. Identify and differentiate all variables before collecting data. Clearly label each variable's role, independent, dependent and control. Use pilot studies to identify possible extraneous variable, because if they have very serious impact over your finding, then you have to look into some other aspects, that how you can minimize, because if your extraneous variable is severely affecting dependent variable, then there is a chance that output may not be genuine. So, look into this aspect and maintain consistency in how variables are measured. For example, if you are in a research using some certain aspect, some certain style to measure the variable, you have to continue with that style throughout the study. Otherwise, the sense and intent of variable will be changed, and that is not permitted in a research. So, make sure all these 4 things you are doing. Concluding discussion for today's lecture, major key takeaways. Clear variable identification is crucial. This is very important, learners. If you do not identify and understand your variable clearly, you are not going to frame a good hypothesis, even you are not going to complete your research properly. Second, variable guides data collection and analysis. Variables guide data collection and analysis. And third is, precision in variable strengthens research outcomes. The more accurately, the more properly you have understood and defined your research variable, more properly and more sound research outcomes you will have, which can be further generalized to have a good output. So, I hope you understand this about variables, and this is all from this lecture. Thank you so much.